Hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I'm super appreciative of you listening to this episode 2102 of the I Am CEO podcast. I'm going to drill down a little bit deeper on these 8 business pillars and why they're important for you within the business. Just to give you a little bit more of a backstory, check out episode number 2100 of the I Am CEO podcast, where I go through a little bit more in depth about those 8 pillars. And of course, they're going to spend more and more time throughout these different episodes, drilling down on some of those, giving you some tidbits and some tips and tidbits from different episodes of the podcast that's going to focus specifically on these 8 pillars and why they're important. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was drill home that as we start to delve down deeper and we start to really figure out how best we can serve these builders, you really can be, for lack of a better term, overwhelmed with the amount of things that there are within business to kind of focus on. And one of the reasons that I wanted to transition from the hundreds of things, which were all the nuggets and the hacks that we heard from each of the 1,600 episodes, to those 16 kind of topics or themes that people can learn from each of the episodes to now these 8 pillars, is because one of the things I wanted it to be effective for people that are listening to this and for people that are looking to try to level up their business is to understand what things to focus on and when. What are all the aspects of business? And the reality is that we all, as CEOs, entrepreneurs, and business owners, want to be expert at all the things. We want to make sure all the things are perfect. All the things are exactly how we envision them to be, because that's how we build the next unicorn, the next $1 trillion company, or whatever it might be our vision to be. But the reality is that often we're going to have to continue to work on certain aspects of the business. You might have a phenomenal HR department, and then all of a sudden your head of HR decides to leave and take on another position. So all of a sudden your processes, your systems might be in place, but that person might have taken things to an entirely different level. So now you're in a different spot than you were maybe 6 months or a year ago. So the reality is to really pay attention to each of these things. But I think as the leader, as the CEO, entrepreneur, business owner, the decision maker, the C-suite, you're trying to determine what might be the best ways to help your organization to level up. And what I wanted to kind of pull on was, if you listen to or taken the course, the You Are a Media Company course, where I talk a lot around building a business and building a marketing strategy and getting your ideal clients and customers to connect with you based off the media company that you build, I basically create and analogize that to building and making your favorite dish. When you are making your favorite dish, you figure out what ingredients are going to be integral to that dish so that you can get those ingredients when you go to the quote unquote grocery store to stock up your cart and to, of course, be able to execute on the recipe. It's going to be very similar for this. When I talk about building a media company, I always say that you don't necessarily want to choose all the ingredients. You want to figure out what you're trying to make. I often go to my mom's sweet potato pie, and I always will probably go on that because it's amazing and I love it. And it's going to be good no matter what time of the year that there is. But the reason I bring that up is because so many times when we go to the grocery store, we go to the grocery store hungry. The way that people kind of execute on their marketing strategy is they literally throw everything into their cart. They hear that there's a new platform and they have to be the first mover on it. So they spend time there and kind of neglect all the other aspects of building a business. Or some people are tried and true. They will not try anything out. They've done this. This is how I built my business. My business has been nothing but word of mouth. I won't try anything else. And they have kind of like the same recipe, same thing that they're executing on. And while that might achieve some type of success at some form, shape, or fashion, what you start to realize is that maybe the ingredients that you were using are not quite set up, don't quite have the ingredients within the ingredients that they did before. It doesn't actually mix the way that it used to mix. It doesn't cook the way that it used to cook. The actual products that they're using aren't the same products that we're using before. And of course, I'm going a little bit further on this analogy, but the point that I want to make is you always want to approach your marketing strategy very similar to you building a media company, very similar to you actually creating your favorite dish. And understand that you constantly want to test, try out different things. And you don't do it at full scale, but you do it in a way that can help make the impact that you ultimately want to make, within your business. So Going back to these 8 business pillars, I'm going to go over them really quickly just in case you haven't listened to episode number 2100. They're people, operations, strategy, product and service or offering, your financial, visibility, technology, and entrepreneurship and business. So those are the 8 things. And what I want to really hammer home for you in this episode is that you don't have to necessarily focus on all the things. And actually, just as I would say in building a media company, if you do try to focus on all the things, you're probably going to reach some type of exhaustion. You're going to be overextended. You're not going to be able to make the impact that you ultimately want to have. So it's important on you as a leader to be able to understand what are the levers that you can push or pull that are going to help you to get closer to level up, get closer to what your goal is, get closer to what that success is. You don't throw all the ingredients into your cart to try to create that favorite dish. You figure out what are the 1 or 2 ingredients that are going to be potentially more impactful than anything else. One of my favorite CEO hacks is the one thing. And the one thing, the whole entire thesis of that book is, what is the one thing that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary? This is where you want to look for the one thing. When I speak to building your media company, I'm saying you pick 1 to maybe max 3 things. But because this is business pillars, you're going to understand that they're a lot more complex than they seem, and they are very much so intertwined. So while I wanted to use the analogy of pillars because they help you build up your business, understand these pillars are very much so intertwined. I often say success is very much so like a plate of spaghetti. These pillars are very much so like that plate of spaghetti, because you can have all the operations in place, but if you don't have the people, it's not going to go quite as well. If you have all the people, but you don't have the operations in place, it's not necessarily going to help you to reach and crush those goals that you really hope to achieve. So keep in mind that as you start to look and evaluate your business, you'll see that there are more impactful things within your business than there might be at other times. For us, specifically right now, we're looking a lot at our operations and seeing how we can clean that up so that it helps us to run at a better final machine. And I'll be completely honest, I thought that at some point our operations were there where we started to realize those ingredients we were using for a long period of time weren't giving us that same taste and excellence that it had before. So it was important for us to start to level up and start to look at that in a completely different way. So know that even as you have your operations, your sales strategies, your technology, your visibility, whatever it is at that level, you might have to go back and really look at that again. So what I really want you to do, if you're listening to this today, just to give you a little bit of homework, just to give you a little bit of an idea to ponder, take a look at those 8 things that are within your business and start to evaluate what are probably 3 impactful questions that I want to kind of leave you with. First and foremost, you're going to say and try to understand what within these 8 pillars, the people, operation, strategy, product and service, financial, visibility, technology, or even the entrepreneurship business, do you feel like you have the best strength in? What is the thing that you feel like in comparison to the other pillars is the strongest out of all of them? And the reason that I want you to answer that first is because I would say you should probably lean more into that. How can you take what is your strength and make it even better? I mentioned a lot around the operations. I felt like that was strong, but I felt like there's another level to that. So even though it might be something that you consider to be a strength, what ways can you make that even better? And how can those ways help you to improve other aspects of your business? Case in point, by building up your operations, getting more SOPs, getting more quality training videos and support for the people are going to help support that people pillar, because you have a lot more clarity around what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it. And then all of a sudden your product and service starts to look better. And then your financial projections start to look better. And then because you are really showing the excellence that you have, you're starting to get your name out there a little bit more. So just keep in mind that as you start to look at these pillars, while I wanted to outline these 8 pillars because I feel like they're all important, understand that they aren't necessarily all equal at any given point in time within your organization. Maybe you do absolutely have, quote unquote, all the things in place, except for getting the leads and opportunities. You don't have enough visibility. You're not getting enough sales. You're not getting enough at bats, so to speak. So that's what you really want to focus on. So as you start to go through and look at these, make sure you ask your question, what are you doing better than anything else? Next, you really want to ask yourself that one thing question. What is the one thing that by doing it, everything else is easier or necessary? Now, I would really, really love to hear how you go through and look at these pillars and where you settle on, because I wonder if 9 out of 10 times the thing that you do the best is actually the one thing. By leveling that up, you're going to be able to create more strength in the thing that you do already so that you can make more and more of an impact. So I would definitely look at that one thing, and ask yourself, if there was one aspect of our business that we can literally focus on, would that make everything else easier or necessary within the business? And here's one thing I want to kind of leave you with as well too, with that question. One of the things I listen to, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well too, for a blog post and a video that I first heard about the one thing, an interview with an author. And one of the things that he really kind of left me with, and I really remember even to this day after reading the book and listening to it many times over and over again, is that often when you do focus on that one thing, especially in the beginning, sometimes things are just going to be chaotic. And what that means is that you're trying to put more time and energy into one pillar, and the other pillars are going to look like they're neglected, that they're not going to be supported, and it's not going to help you get to where you want to be. But the reality is that that one thing ends up being like a domino, and that domino starts to knock over larger dominoes and larger dominoes and larger dominoes. And you start to realize that it's not so much you figuring out how to knock over all 8 dominoes, it's figuring out how you can line up each of these 8 pillars so that you can knock them over. Or you can knock over 3 of them, and then you might have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how to knock over, the 6 or 7 more, or it'll be, I guess my math's bad, the 5 after that. So whatever your math looks like, whatever that one thing is that's going to knock over those 8 dominoes, make sure that you look at that, because that's going to be one of the most impactful things. And then the reality is, the next question that I have is probably going to be the question that is probably going to be the same answer, hopefully, for all 3 of those. And it's going to be the thing that makes it the most fun. Like, what is most exciting to you to work on? What is going to be the thing that you're going to put in the time and energy? So many times on the podcast, I say, you don't have to necessarily choose something that you're passionate about when you're starting a business, or you're thinking of buying a business, or whatever, or however you get into entrepreneurship. But the reality is that you want to choose that because you have an opportunity to choose that. You don't have to choose something that you don't like just to make a quick payday. You could choose something that you can make a quick payday with, and something you like. And you don't have to choose either or. You can choose both and better. And that both and better mentality speaks directly to that abundance mindset. So when you're looking at these 8 pillars, I'd be curious if the thing that you like and love to do the most is probably that thing that also will help you to move the business forward. So answer those 3 questions. Be very clear on what you feel you're strongest with, what you feel like is the thing that can ultimately excite you the most, and be very clear on where you think that needle can be moved the most, and what that looks like. So that's just me. Understand these pillars are not siloed. They're very much so intertwined. Again, envision that plate of spaghetti. But this is Gresh signing out. I'll be talking more and more and more about these 8 pillars in business. Of course, you're going to see it across CB Nation and across our different sites as well too. So hopefully that's helpful. Would love to hear how you're answering those 3 questions, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.